Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have something very cool to take a look at today. We've got a box of Kaiyodo dinosaur figures. These were actually recently up for sale on Big Bad Toy Store, which is where I purchased mine, and it states that this is the Excavation Stories of Dinosaurs Volume 10 on the Big Bad Toy Store listing, though it calls it the Strongest Dinosaur Hunters North American Cretaceous Period. I don't know what the actual name is. I mean, I guess that could be the name according to Big Bad Toy Store it is, but you can see that we've got quite a few different really cool looking figures contained within, and it's not often that I see Kaiyodo dinosaur figures going up for pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store, so I definitely snagged that pre-order immediately. But you can see the box art's pretty nice, actually. You can see the dinosaur figures themselves are portrayed here on the side quite a few times. You can see them over here as well, and then there's nothing really exciting going on the bottom. Same deal pretty much again up here, so definitely psyched to take a look at this, so let's pop this box open and do just that. So once you pop the first box open, you're left with a bunch of little boxes, and you can again get a good idea of what the figures look like here, just looking at the front of the box. A nice image here from this side, also helping to give you an idea of the size of your Kaiyodo figures. Same deal for the opposing side as far as different images go. And then you can also see here on the back, again, not only images of the figures, but it actually tells you which species are included, as we have an Ornithomimus, we've got two different Tyrannosaurs, we also have a Triceratops and a Dakotaraptor, which is pretty darn cool. So we're going to pop these boxes open and then pull the figures out from within, and this one is the Dakotaraptor. So they come in these little plastic bags, as you can see, and then we'll just open this up. As you can also see, we've got our dinosaur here that is taken apart as far as the tail goes. You just have to pop that tail on there, get that on nice and tight, and then apply your Dakotaraptor to the very small base that it has included here. There we go, which that was absolutely not as easy of a task as you would expect it to be, but there you go, you have your figure again together. You've got your Dakotaraptor now on the base. I'm not going to bore you guys with opening each and every one of these individually and then pulling them out and doing all that stuff again. So we'll pop them all open, get them all down here on the table, and check them out. So there we go, we've got all 5 of the different species out here before us. They also sent an extra as far as the Dakotaraptor. There were 6 boxes included. You're bound to get an extra, and the extra that I got was the Dakotaraptor, but obviously I don't need to open that one since I've already got one open here before us. We also had this little booklet contained within, which I did forget to mention before, and as you open it up, you can immediately see some really nice images of the figures themselves next to a human being, and then also some images contained within with a whole bunch of information that unfortunately I cannot read, but still pretty cool to have this little booklet included as well. But the figures actually look quite beautiful overall. Again, that's not surprising being Kaiyodo. Kaiyodo releases some of the best, most beautiful dinosaur figures you'll ever see. So I'm very, very psyched to take a closer look at all of these different figures. So let's jump to that closer look right now. So the first one we'll take a look at, we'll check out the Triceratops. And you can see the Triceratops looks really nice. I like the color scheme they've given it. It has that nice naturalistic look when it comes to a ceratopsy, and also some beautiful paintwork too, something so small. You can see that we have some really nice, very natural transitioning between colors, as we have primarily like a greenish tone, but you could see some hints of browns in the midsection as well as back here behind the thigh. You've also got some really nice lighter greens up here in the frill to highlight the detail of the frill, help the frill stand out. You've got some blacks for the horns, and also again for the beak we have another variation of a dark green with a nice gloss coat, and you can see more really nice variation of colors. We have a light green for the face, smoothly transitions to kind of like a tan, and then a light brown for the underside. I don't think that head is on perfectly, but again, the paint job is really nicely done. For something so small, it's incredibly impressive. You can see the nails are painted as well. We have a really cool pose for the Triceratops as it's rearing up. Looks like maybe it's dueling with another Triceratops, potentially. It's about to like kind of come down for an attack, or maybe it's just defending its family member or defending itself from a predator. You really don't know, but it's definitely a pretty fun pose for your Triceratops. You can see that the overall detailing looks really good, really vibrant throughout as well. You've got all the type of detail you would like to see when it comes to like skin folds, skin wrinkles, really nice looking skin texture. You've also got like some osteoderms and stuff throughout the upper part of the Triceratops. The spinal column is nicely elaborated right there, but all of the detail looks really good and pretty much exactly showing off the movement of the Triceratops for the positioning of the dinosaur. So definitely a really nice looking Triceratops. I love the pose of this one because it's just so different from your average Triceratops model. And you can also see that we have a nice kind of an earthy base for the dinosaur. Almost looks like it's standing on like a dried up riverbed or something like that. That kind of looks like what it seems to me to potentially portray, but definitely a really cool Triceratops and definitely a fun figure as well to start out this batch of Kaiyodos. And then we've got ourselves the Dakotaraptor, and the Dakotaraptor is really quite bright as far as the coloration goes, but I love the colors of this thing. You can also see that we've got some greens on the Dakotaraptor. We just had some greens on the Triceratops, but we have plenty of more colors on our Dakotaraptor as we have a really vibrant appearance to it. The head sculpt looks great. You've got a nice yellow for the snout, but it transitions to an orange there at the tip of the snout. You can see again cuts off very nicely for a green where the feathers would probably begin to pick up. You've got a nicely painted eye there. Has kind of like a pinkish tone and then a black pupil. The mouth is open. You can see all of the teeth are painted there on the inside of the mouth of the Dakotaraptor. The tongue as well is sticking up there on the inside of the mouth, very nicely sculpted. Really beautiful paintwork for something, again, so small. Kaiyodo is super good at this as they've been doing it for a very long time. You can see a little batch of feathers there leading off of the back of the head of the Dakotaraptor. They are painted with a brownish tone. As you lead down, you continue to see that it has some really nice, really fine feathers moving through the figure. You've got the shoulder blade there, really nice arm sculpt again with those fantastic feathers, that really nice plumage leading off of the arm, and they painted that as well with a really nice kind of a darker tone of orange. But we also have some yellows in there very briefly. You can see the hands are painted with a pinkish tone, which I think is very interesting. That's definitely not something you see often, but it actually looks really good. The nails are painted with a dark gray on the hands, but the nails of the feet are painted actually with a light gray, which is pretty interesting to see. We have kind of like almost like a shade of a very dark purplish brown type color for the feet. You can see that the Dakotaraptor clearly is moving, as that's caught very nicely in the pose as this leg is lifting up off of the ground. The other leg is planted. You can see that the sickle claws are up and extended, so it looks like potentially it's coming in for a kill. And you can see a little bit more yellow there leading along the stomach right in front of the thigh. We also have kind of like an orangish brown up here on the top of the dinosaur as you lead out into that really nice looking tail. And again, beautiful feather detail. You also have a light gray for the underside of the figure, and then as you lead out, you have a really nice looking tail here at the end with a kind of like a reddish tone for the tip of the tail. Some nice feathers out there on the end of the tail as well. Again, really cool looking Dakotaraptor figure, and definitely a really vibrant looking Dakotaraptor. The coloration of this is super flashy, but I could definitely see it being the coloration of a dinosaur like this, and the coloration looks pretty nice over here. Again, very precise as far as the paintwork goes. I definitely feel like they did a great job on this one for sure, and a really cool species choice as well, as I don't have very many Dakotaraptors. And then we've got what my favorite I think would be for this set. We've got the Ornithomimus, and I would say even though I have very little Dakotaraptor figures, I don't know that I have any Ornithomimus figures, so I'm going to go ahead and say that this one's my favorite just because it's such a very cool species that is severely underrated. You can see the head sculpt looks really nice. Again, for something so small, they do a great job of adding in some nice variation of color. As you can see, we have kind of like an orangish brown there around the eye. It transitions to a pinkish tone there as you lead out toward the snout, and then you again gain that kind of orangish brown out there at the tip of the snout. The mouth is open. You can see that the tongue is painted painted there on the inside of the mouth, kind of like with a dark blue. Super impressive paintwork for something so small. The eye is painted with a black. As you lead down, you can see a really nice twist in the neck as the Ornithomimus obviously is looking back behind it, I guess maybe being chased down potentially by something. You can also kind of see like some genuine fear in the face of the dinosaur. It's also letting a vocalization out, so stressing that fear. As you move down, you continue to see that the feather detail looks really nice. We have a very light tone of color for this one with kind of like a light yellow, but there are variations of yellows throughout which are potentially a little hard to pick up on unless you look at it in a really nice light, but they definitely did a great job of adding and blending some very nice variations of yellows. You can see as you lead down here into the arms, you have a pretty cool design running along the plumage there on the outer edge of the arms with some grays and whites. Looks really nice, and the actual detailing of the feathers for something so small looks pretty darn good as well. You can see that the hands, similar to the Dakotaraptor, are actually painted with a pink. Same deal for both hands. You can see that both arms are in a different position, so obviously again showing the somewhat panicked look, I would say, for this one, as it definitely appears to be fleeing from something, and the limbs are just kind of all over the place as far as the running aspect to the Ornithomimus. You can see that everything looks good over here as well. The nails are painted with a nice grayish tone. You've got more really nice feather detail in the stomach region there. As you lead back into the thigh, the muscle definition and everything is really nicely highlighted. You again have that pinkish tone for the legs as you actually reach into the area where you would regain the skin rather than the feathers. You know, the feathers taper off. We end up in the leg department of our Ornithomimus, and we have some really nice skin texture down here again with that, well, we're losing focus on it, but that pinkish tone, boy, what the heck just happened there? And you can also see that we have some very nicely painted nails yet again, and then you lead out into the tail. You have a beautiful kind of an elegant curve and a really nice design as you lead out to the tip of the tail, a little bit of flashiness there to end our Ornithomimus. And again, it's a really cool looking figure. I really like the sculpt of this one, and I also like the paint job of this one. You can see we have a nice darker brown for the underside of the dinosaur. Very cool species choice. Again, one that I don't believe I have in my collection, and if I do, I definitely don't have many of them. And then we've got ourselves a T-Rex, but the T-Rex, there's two different versions of it. It is the same sculpt, just different paint jobs. So you can see that the head sculpt looks pretty good on this one. Some pretty nice looking detailing. The eye has a white and a black pupil, if my camera would focus on it. You can definitely see that the eye looks pretty good. You have some fairly nice looking paintwork for the faces. You have a light brown, but there's also some darker browns leading up from the back of the head. Very nice looking head sculpt for our Rex. You can see the nostrils sculpted out there. The eyes painted pretty nicely as well. Obviously the mouth is in an open position, and you can see the teeth are all sculpted beautifully and all painted really nicely. Very dark tone for the inside of the mouth, which looks pretty nice. You've got the tongue in there. I actually really quite like that spot right there, just looking at us. Very cool. And as you lead up here to the top, you can see kind of like some light feathering running along the back of the Rex, as well as some varying tones of color, and they've also dry brushed over the top here really nicely with kind of like a dark gray. You get some really nicely sculpted out arms, some nice skin wrinkles leading down into the arms. The nails are painted. You've got quite a bit of skin wrinkles here in the stomach region, showing the turn of the Rex, as it's obviously got a pretty sharp turn toward its left occurring. And you can definitely see that sculpted really nicely there in the stomach region. Nice muscle definition again in the leg as you lead down. Really nice looking foot sculpt. Again, nicely painted nails. You can see dew claws and everything. Again, the earthy area looks pretty similar to what we just saw on the Triceratops. And then you lead out here into the tail. You can continue to see again a nice mixture of skin texture as well as feathers up here on the top of the Rex. Really nice curve to the tail as well. And again, more beautiful detailing. I really quite like the coloration of this one. It definitely seems and definitely feels really natural, and really feels like the potential coloration I could see on a big theropod like this, where it wouldn't be super obvious that it's hiding out, waiting to ambush prey or something like that. Like, it definitely has a really nice ability to probably camouflage with colors like this, so I really like the tones of color they've chosen for the Rex, and I love the positioning as well. Very dynamic pose for the Rex as it's moving in for a kill. And then you also again have the alternate color variant, which is exactly the same sculpt, but you can see this time we have a grayish tone of color for the Rex, and you also have kind of like a light yellow here for the underside, and then there's kind of almost like bronze type coloration up here on the top that's been dry brushed over rather than the dark gray that we saw on the previous version, which it looks interesting. Not my first choice as far as coloration goes. I would say I like the other one a little better than this one, but it still looks pretty cool. This one, you kind of have like a reddish tone there on the inside of the mouth, or like a variation of a pink, but it runs through the teeth, almost giving it almost like a bloody type of a look in the teeth, which is actually pretty cool just because it's a little different from the other one. But there's not too much else going on as far as coloration goes for this one, but it still looks pretty nice, and even though it's not my favorite, I definitely like the other one better. It's still a pretty cool variant of this Rex, and another really cool addition to this set. Definitely excited to have all of these, as it's not often I get Kaiyodo figures, so this was a very exciting release on Big Bad Toy Store that I just knew I had to purchase. To apply your figures to their bases as well, there's basically just like a little footprint type area that you push the very tiny pegs on the undersides of the feet into, and that's how you apply your dinosaurs to the base. But as far as the size goes, if you are not familiar with the Kaiyodo figures, they're very small. That's the one thing that you can immediately take note of. It's a very small line of dinosaurs. You're looking at about 3¼ inches or a little over 8 centimeters in length for the Rex, which is the biggest one here. Maybe not the tallest. I think the Ornithomimus would be a little taller, but for a height, you're looking at about just shy of 1¾ inches or a little over 4 centimeters, approaching 4½, I would say, actually. I'm not going to measure each and every one, as I don't feel like that is probably necessary. We will, though, go with a size comparison to help show you the size. So there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Back Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our Kaiyodo dinosaur figures. And you can really see again that they are really small. Definitely very, very small figures. But if you've already purchased Kaiyodo figures like this in the past, you're definitely going to know the size, because they always seem to come in these smaller sizes for the most part when it comes to the Kaiyodo line. I don't feel like too many size comparisons are probably necessary for this review, especially if you're coming into this knowing already roughly what the size of Kaiyodo figures are. But if you're a common viewer, a casual viewer, I should say, of my channel, and you may not be familiar with the Kaiyodo line, these two here should help to give you a pretty good idea of the size of the Kaiyodo line, as we have a Mattel Mini Ceratosaurus on the left and a Dimetrodon from Toy Monster International Captives to the right. Now, these are mini figures that you see here when it comes to the Toy Monster and Mattel figures, so you can clearly see that these Kaiyodo figures are not much larger than minis, and I would say are mini figures. They really do fit right in that size range. So you can definitely see that they are very impressive when it comes to the sculpt and paint job for something so small. Kaiyodo has always blown me away when it comes to how good the sculpts and paint jobs of their figures are for the small size. So this brand new set of Kaiyodo dinosaur figures is really cool. Definitely another fun set from them, and I wish I had the pleasure of getting more Kaiyodo figures into my collection more often. The problem with them is that even though they're small, they're usually pretty pricey, especially when you buy them from eBay. So that's why I was so excited to see this line and this box full of dinos show up on Big Bad Toy Store. And again, I grabbed the pre-order immediately because I knew I wanted to have them. I definitely would love to have more Kaiyodo in my collection, and this is a great start to get more into my collection. But you can see that we've got 5 very cool figures, but 4 different species overall, as we've got the Ornithomimus, which I think the Ornithomimus is probably my favorite, like I said earlier, just because I have so few figures of that dinosaur, and it's really cool to have a species like that entering my collection when I have so few to represent it, especially such a good one here from Kaiyodo, because the sculpt is great, the paint job is pretty nice as well, definitely looks natural on the figure overall, and again, these figures being so small, they're a really convenient size to pretty much put anywhere without having any problems when you have an overflowing collection of figures like I do. We also have a Triceratops, and the Triceratops is really cool because it has such a unique pose on it. Not something you often see on a Triceratops would be this pose, so I was definitely a fan of this when I had seen it in the promotional images on the listing. Definitely a fan here in person, as well. The sculpt is also quite beautiful, and the paint job is nice and naturalistic. I feel like the tones of color on that look like it would look on a real Triceratops, so they've done a good job of not only choosing the tones of color to use, but also applying them in a really smooth, natural way. Then you've got the Tyrannosaurs, and we have two different variants here of the T-Rex. Both are really nice, though I'm a little more partial to the brownish version. Definitely a really nice sculpt overall. Very cool. Again, very dynamic pose for the Rex, as it's obviously coming in for a kill. It would look pretty cool actually dueling with the Triceratops, and definitely, again, another really cool Tyrannosaur release from Kaiyodo, as they have tons already out, but this newest version is definitely a very cool looking one, and I like the kind of light feathering running along the back as well. Very, very cool. Both of them very nice. Again, I'm more partial to the brownish one, but both look great. And then you have the Dakotaraptor, and the Dakotaraptor has such a very cool, unique paint scheme. Very nice sculpt as well, but the paint scheme is not exactly what I would normally see on a dinosaur like this, and the tones of color especially. You don't often see green raptors, so I was immediately drawn to the unique look of this one, and it really does look nice as far as not only the tones of color chosen, again, very unique colors, but also the design and paint scheme they've chosen for it, and the application of the paint is super nice and very natural on the Dakotaraptor as well. And yet again, we have a pretty fun pose for this one, and pretty much the exact pose you would like for a raptor, I would think. So as a whole, this is another really, really cool set from Kaiyodo, and one that I am beyond excited to add to my collection. So if you are interested in picking this up, I will include a link in the description to the listing on Big Bad Toy Store where I purchased mine. I don't know for sure if there are any available still or if it's sold out, but I will include the link regardless. Check the description. If it's not sold out, definitely pick it up because it's a great set. If it is sold out, hopefully it'll come back into stock and you'll be able to grab it at some point soon. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.